Yes, it's almost 15 after 7, 15 after 6 in Queensland, Thursday, February 20. In politics, if you're a commentator, you've got to try to be objective. There's been a lot of talk in recent times about the National Party. It is undeniable that the leader, Michael McCormack, is a dead man walking. For the coalition to have any hope of winning government at the next election, McCormack has to go. And replacing him with Little Proud is not the answer. As you've heard me say many times, there are only two people who can make National Party members vote national, and they're Barnaby Joyce and Matt Canavan. Put that aside. Well, that's been the focus of the last couple of weeks. In my view, in the last week, the Labor leader, Anthony Albanese, has got himself into enormous trouble on a range of fronts. He was asked in Brisbane this week to outline his stance on coal, and he said, quote, "We have an environmental process for any new projects, but the truth is markets make decisions based on economics, and the cheapest form of energy in Australia is wind and solar. There are new technologies as well." This is complete rubbish, of course. And when asked if he supported coal-fired power, he said, "You may as well ask me if I support unicorns. I don't think there's a place for new coal-fired power plants in Australia, full stop," and suggested the private sector wouldn't touch the Collinsville project with a barge pole. Well, if unreliable wind and solar are the market's choice, why do they still require government subsidies? And how do you properly power aluminium production, which employs 3,000 people in central Queensland, all of whom are listening to me now, without reliable baseload power? As I speak to you, over 90% of the power that's being used as we get up this morning is coal-fired. Many Labor union backers, including the powerful CFMEU, support clean coal-fired power. Now we've got a new group on the scene from within the Parliamentary Labor Party called the Otis Group, O-T-I-S. Otis, I might add, derives from a Greek word. Some say it has German origin, but the meaning of Otis in German and English is prosperity and fortune and wealth. So an Otis group within the Labor Party, I presume, is a group which is dedicated to securing economic wealth for the country. So what do you think they're on about? Basically, they're saying this group, 9 Labor frontbenchers, and among them Joel Fitzgibbon, Shane Newman, Don Farrell, and this has been someone say it's the right. I don't think it's the Labor right at all. It's just the Labor common sense. Primary concern, not about internal factional politics. They want to see Labor move on policy issues which are related to engendering and growing the economic wealth of the country, and that is coal mining. And it wants to ensure the party doesn't continue to pander to the left, as was the case under Bill Shorten's leadership. Now, Joel Fitzgibbon is central to this for one reason. They've got empirical proof of the stupidity of the last campaign. Now, this bloke has got ability, Joel Fitzgibbon, and he's very popular in his electorate of Hunter. But it is a mining electorate. He almost lost his seat to One Nation at last year's election. There was a backlash against Labor in mining communities. The swing against Joel Fitzgibbon in the seat of Hunter was 14.2%. His primary vote was only 37.6%. One Nation, Mark Latham and these people are laughing. One Nation got 21.6% of the vote. And Joel Fitzgibbon succeeded his father. This was blue ribbon Labor, this stuff. And even on a two-party preferred, the swing against Joel Fitzgibbon, as I said, a very good Labor candidate, was 9.5%. These people are frustrated. And they're going to shift the party because if they don't, their seat is gone and the party can't win government. Pretty simple. Lovely to be in opposition, but as Gough Whitlam said, you're pretty impotent in opposition. So where to for Anthony Albanese? Joel Fitzgibbon is on the line. Joel, good morning.
Yeah, good to be with you, Alan.
Thank you for your time. This Otis group, Otis symbolising wealth, prosperity, how do you secure the prosperity of the nation if you demonise coal-fired power?
Well, many things drive me in politics, Alan, but chief amongst them is my determination that we create and maintain well-paid jobs in rural and regional Australia. And, of course, the industries that underpin rural and regional Australia are the mining industry, the oil and gas industry, and, of course, the agriculture sector. And we've got to back them in, we've got to make them sustainable, and we've got to give them a future.
Quite, I agree. And so do a stack of your colleagues, but your leader doesn't agree with that.
Well, I'll challenge you on that. I mean, Anthony Albanese has made it very, very clear that, one, he supports the coal mining industry.
No, he doesn't. He said last week, Joel, now someone, hang on. Integrity is the key here, my friend. He said last week, coal has no future in Australia. Anthony Albanese.
You'll always get candour and honesty from me, Alan. And he said yesterday in Brisbane that he welcomes the jobs of the coal mining industry. What we need to be careful
He said, you may as well ask me if I support unicorns. Now, a unicorn is regarded as something that is desirable, but, it's difficult to find or obtain. You may as well ask me if I support unicorns. And he called the $4 million that the coalition government had provided for a feasibility study into the proposed new clean coal-fired power plant at Collinsville hush money for climate change sceptics. Anthony Albanese, I don't think there's a place for new coal-fired power plants in Australia, full stop. That's what your leader said, which is the exact opposite of what you just said to me.
No, Alan, I don't believe anyone will build a new coal-fired generator in Australia either. I just don't think the return is there. And this is where we make the mistake of conflating the coal generation sector with the coal mining sector. Of course, there's a relationship, but theoretically you could close down the coal generation sector in Australia tomorrow and you would still have a very, very strong coal mining industry because its focus is on the $60 billion export market. Now, we will continue to have coal generation for a long, long time because, particularly in Queensland, the fleet of generators are quite young. So they'll be there as long as 2050. But when they retire, when they come to the end of their physical and economic lives, they are unlikely to be replaced because you need a 40 to 50-year return. We don't know what the energy sector is going to look like in 10 years, let alone 40 years. And I just don't think that the private sector is going to make that investment.
Well, it's lovely to have that view, Joel, because you and I won't be here in 40 to 50 years and some other poor coots are going to cop all of this. But at the end of the day, when you say there is no future, the market is not interested. I have in front of me a press release from Shine Energy, signed by the Chief Executive Officer, Ashley Dodd. So when Anthony Albanese says the market won't touch, this is what he said, the Collinsville project with a barge pole, he argues that that's not true, that Shine Energy are in discussions with international investors and, quote, there is a lot of interest in the market. Now, he said last week, Anthony Albanese, I don't think there's a place for new coal-fired power plants in Australia and that the private sector would not touch the Collinsville project with a barge pole. And here is, I've got the press release in front of me, and it's signed by Shine Energy, and it's signed by the sea. And, of course, I might add, this is a very witty traditional owner group, Shine Energy, and they have the international support for a new coal-fired power plant at Collinsville.
But it's such an economic opportunity that the company wants the taxpayer to kick in $4 million to determine its viability. I mean, if it's such a great project and it's so attractive to investors, why do we need taxpayers to spend $4 million to prove its viability? I mean, that just makes no sense, Alan.
Joel, I can't believe what you've just said to me. Now, listen, you people have supported from hill to dale renewable energy, which by 2030 will have enjoyed subsidies of 30, not million, billion, B for billion, $30,000 million. No one in the Labor Party's got the guts to say renewables are the answer to tomorrow, therefore you don't need our help. There will be no money, taxpayers' money, going into renewable energy. And here you're worried about a few $1 million to do a feasibility study into Collinsville.
But Alan, Queensland has a surplus of generation. It generates more electricity than it consumes, and it exports the...
Thank God it does, because they have to export it to Victoria. Yeah. Thank God they do.
And I absolutely agree.
They're keeping the lights on.
Why is it so important to build a new coal-fired generator in Queensland when there's a surplus of power and when Queensland has the youngest fleet of coal generators in the country?
Well, the answer to that, Joel, the answer to that is, one, the coal is there. That's the first thing. Two, it provides jobs. And three, there is a thing called a grid. And that will feed into the grid, which keeps dopey governments like Victoria in power and in electricity. Now, Graham Richardson said on my program, our program a week ago, I think it was, when I said to him, well, what about this coal-fired power and Labor's attitude towards demonising coal-fired power? And Richo said it's crazy. I know that on my side of politics, a lot of people agree with that. This is Richo. It's rubbish. If we don't keep coal-fired power stations, we're stark raving mad. We'll send the Australian economy into free fall and we'll live in penury. It's just dumb, and what we need to do is maintain power for industry, power for our homes. There's one way you're going to do that, and that is coal.
And I won't have a bar of people demonising coal-fired generation. It's critical to my own electorate. But Alan, we are now falling into the same trap. We're talking about the coal generation industry all the time when my absolute focus is on the coal mining industry, that $60 billion export market. And,
because that politically, Joel, that politically suits you. But will you tell me now, therefore, that in a government, if you were to win government, and if Albo keeps talking like this, as you know, you've got no hope of winning government, and you saw that last election, you'll lose your seat. You'll lose your seat if he keeps talking like this. There's no place for coal-fired power. However, can you say, therefore, a Labor government will never, ever, ever subsidise renewable energy?
Alan, Anthony Albanese will lead the Labor Party to the next election. And
you'll worry about that later. You answer my question, Joel.
He will win.
Will you say that a Labor government will never, ever, ever subsidise? Because Albanese says, the market will decide. Well, if the market's going to decide, you don't need taxpayers' money. Will you say there will be no government money, taxpayers' money going into renewable energy?
Alan, who started the subsidies?
Hang on. Because they all swallowed. Hey, look, don't talk to me about this. They've all swallowed. Yeah, I know. They all swallowed the global warming climate change pill. Well, thank God some people are waking up to this rubbish, and now there is a willingness in the coalition to wind back renewable. They don't get any votes for me for the subsidies. I'm asking you. You win government tomorrow. Would a Labor government subsidise to any extent renewable energy?
Something will have to replace coal-fired generators when those generators come to the end of their economic lives, Alan, in some cases 50 years away. And a Labor government will continue to provide the incentives necessary to ensure that the renewable sector continues to grow. This will be very important.
Now, Joel, now listen. I got this bloke called Fitzgibbon. I've got this bloke, and he actually is wanting to build a coal-fired power station. But I've also got this bloke called Geddes over here, who actually wants to put windmills up. And I'm going to give Geddes millions of dollars for every windmill he sticks up. What is that? I'm not getting Fitzgibbon here with his coal anything. I'm giving him nothing. Now, common sense, let alone economic rationality, will tell you you've got no hope against an outfit over here who's getting paid for every windmill he puts in the air. I'm asking you, will you provide any subsidies whatever to renewable energy?
Well, let me first make the point, Alan, that you need 200 tonnes of coking coal to build one wind turbine, and many farmers are making good off-farm income by hosting wind turbines on their land. But the second point is, so that you can't say I haven't answered your question, the Labor Party will, of course, as does even the current government, will have in place measures to ensure that investment in the renewable sector remains attractive.
And that's why AGL, Joel, want to close down Liddell, because they're rent seekers like everybody else, and they're saying, I'll go into renewable energy because governments will provide taxpayers' money for me to do it. This is a nonsense.
Alan, they're closing down the girl because sadly the old girl at age 50 just can't keep going. She's come to the end of her economic and physical life. So I talk to the workers there, Alan. You can't just keep band-aiding her and keeping her going.
Joel, the public, your electorate are not stupid. You got 37% of the vote, 37% of that, and you are as good a candidate as the Labor can get. Then you know the electorate backwards. The vote was spoken. They've spoken. You've heard them. If you ignore them, you're in strife. Before you go, I've got to ask you one question, because you've been very good on this farmgate price for milk. Should there be, and David Littleproud has been absolutely hopeless, should there be a minimum price for the farmer for milk?
Absolutely there should, Alan. Yes. The problem in the dairy sector is structural, and the only way you fix it is with some very deliberate government intervention. What is wrong with ensuring that our farmers get, at the very least, something just above their
cost of production? 100%.
If they don't do that, Alan, they'll continue to leave the land.
That's it.
And we'll be importing our drinking milk.
Absolutely right. Good to talk to you. Thank you for sticking your head up. Keep at it.
A pleasure, Alan.
There he is, Joel Fitzgibbon. And we've got the news coming up next at 7:30, 6:30 in Queensland.